November 27th, 2022. Alright, look. I got something. like, oh, sorry. I got something to share that's going based off of something I talked about a lot so far, and one of the best arguments I've had on this channel, as a part of my religion, philosophy, and understanding of existence. Okay, so look. Basically, this is just a good little diagram of what I was saying in those videos about particles, time and space, and how there's a finite amount of particles in the universe and in existence. Not in existence, but a finite amount of particles that exist. You cannot be inside of existence. You can only be bound to it, or you could say that you could be bound to it. The only thing you could say about it is that you are bound to it, or that you are a part of it, but you're not inside of it, because it's not. Existence isn't a location. So existence is a phenomenon. It's a it's a process of nature. It's a force of nature, but it's not. It's a concept that we use to describe those things, but it's not actually a location. Space, on the other hand, is a location, but it's not. However, space is not existence. Space is merely a part of existence, and if you take away space, things would still arguably exist. So, I mean, there would still be existence if you took away space. Now, even so, I guess you could say that there wouldn't be existence at that point if there was no physical, that if you didn't exist in a location, you'd be beyond existence. The reason for that is consistent. The reason I'm going to explain for that are consistent with what I've been saying already. Alright, so look. Basically, what I was saying is still true, is that, yeah, sorry about the noises. But, anyway. The bottom line is, nothing's gonna change the fact here that existence itself can only occur if there is a location, if location exists, and that's only possible if space exists, because space is location and location is space. They're one and the same. And I've given evidence of that before. So look, that's why I have this diagram, but I've not given this diagram until now. Despite talking about this in great detail, I haven't given a diagram for it. It really helps significantly. I've given the recommendation for people to draw it out. But I've started to realize that people just don't care to draw it out for themselves. They want me to spoon feed them these truths until they believe them. They're literally no different than babies. So anyway, here we have it. Like I was saying, if you drew out all the matter that exists, I'm not saying it would look like this. Like, if you look, I'm not saying it would be a circle. It would form a circle of a shape. I'm not saying it would. Okay, but yeah, I'm not saying it would form a circle. But look, still, even so, that doesn't change the fact here, because it's not about what shape it would form. Whatever shape it would form, at the end of the day, there's an outside portion of that shape. Because one thing's for sure, all the matter clumped together would form some shape. Whether it's a circle, perfect circle, or it's some like weird multi-sided shape, really abstract looking shape. Either way, that has no bearing on whether or not there's an outside of all that matter, and there is what I'm trying to say. According to this diagram, you can perfectly accurately represent all matter on a diagram if you just draw all the matter that exists as being the universe, no matter what shape it is. At the end of the day, the outside of that shape would look like whatever this is. This part, like everything surrounding it, I didn't even draw it, because it's not created by the matter. It's because it's not matter. The only thing in this diagram that's actually matter is what's contained within the circle and the lines around the lines. Everything that's a perfect accurate representation of what I'm saying. Everything else is not matter that's outside of it. So if that's really true, then whatever's outside of the universe and whatever's outside of matter is essentially sorry about the noise. Whatever's outside of matter, then, in the universe, and location, because matter creates location. If there's no matter, there's no location. So, which basically means whatever's out here, outside of this circle on this diagram, and the words aren't, I'm not saying the words are outside of the universe, okay? This is just a diagram where I'm putting words on here to give an explanation. Realistically speaking, it would really what it would look like is just like some shape, whether it's a circle or not, and that's what the universe would look like. And then outside of it, there would be no matter, so there wouldn't be any of these words. Obviously, they're just so. What would be out there then is the question. And if you say nothing, well then, surely isn't that a paradox? Because, again, that's saying that nothingness exists outside of something. Well, if that's really true, then how? How can nothingness exist if nothingness can't do anything? According to the laws of logic and according to most people's opinion in history, nothingness would not be able to do something. Instead, it would just have to it wouldn't do something. I mean, but clearly it must have done something. Clearly, nothingness must exist then, if there's something outside of this. So it's either that which is basically saying that nothing exists as a thing, which is a paradox. How can nothingness? In order to do something, you have to be a something, and if nothingness is truly outside of this, by the logic of what I'm saying, then that ultimately means that nothingness actually is something, and nothingness actually can do things, and because it is a something that exists, which is a paradox on multiple levels. So that's more proof that paradoxes exist, contrary to popular religions. If you say that what's outside of all existing matter, see, the universe / all existing matter and all existing physical particles. So, and then I wrote here, 0 existing physical particles, but some existing things. I mean, whatever exists outside of the particles, that all existing particles isn't more existing particles. That if it were, then that's just another paradox. I'm saying all the existing particles are gravitated towards one part. Gravity would necessitate that. Just gravity alone would necessitate that. And even if gravity didn't exist, all it would mean is that matter would be scattered and scattered. It wouldn't actually result in there being, say, I don't know, there being somehow there being a way for there to be matter matter that isn't a part of all existing matter, like as a category of a quantity of things. But ultimately, it's either that what exists outside of all existing matter is existing matter, and that means basically there's matter that defies the laws of physics, and there's matter that defies possibility, because all existing matter exists there through possibility. So if all the matter that exists is bound to that, is grouped up there, which is our universe, then that's just, very self-explanatory, pretty darn straightforward. So. Yeah, that was a nuisance. I'm sorry for those noises. Where I'm at, there was some jackasses who were driving their motorbikes in a public parking lot retardedly arbitrarily. I don't know why. I have no idea who that was. But it couldn't have been at a worse time. Right when I started recording, they started doing it. Well, anyway, my point still stands. Because look, at the end of the day, bullshit. Alright, so look, at the end of the day, what I'm saying is still true. According to this diagram, the physics behind it, I mean, if this is all the matter that exists, then how could there be matter here? Because that's all the matter that exists. Has to be right here. If all the matter that exists has to be grouped up together right here, and it actually is, then there is not matter over here, because that would be a contradiction to the first premise, that all the matter that exists is bound right here. So whatever's outside of this matter is not more matter. It only makes sense to assume that what's outside of it is not matter, but is rather something that exists, but it's not matter. It's just something that exists, but it isn't matter either. And that's why I was saying it must be something non-physical. But the entire premise of the non-physical is paradoxical, because again, it's like, that's why I said a long time ago, what even makes the non-physical happen? And whatever does is not the non-physical itself. And it's certainly not the physical, since the non-physical must have existed before the physical. I mean, even if you say they both always existed, there's no way for the physical to create the non-physical. There would still be no way for the physical to create the non-physical. So ultimately, that's the entire gist of it. So how can something that isn't physical exist in the first place, is all that points to meaning, without it being a paradox, because it doesn't occupy space, clearly, and clearly it doesn't occupy space, and it doesn't do anything physical, but it's still something that exists. So it doesn't exist anywhere. There is no there to it. It's just a thing that exists, independent of physical things and their processes. Coexist with them, but it doesn't rely on them to exist. But I mean, it might rely on them to do things, but it doesn't rely on physical things to exist in the first place, clearly. So and yet ultimately, I guess what that suggests is that the non-physical, it doesn't exist in a physical way, if it even does exist. In fact, if physical things exist through motion, if they exist through change, that's one thing, but that doesn't mean that you have to move or go through motion in order to undergo change. I mean, not necessarily. Because change is just when you go from one state of being to another. And, well, non-physical things, for example, consciousness, could go from one state of being to another, but not going from a state of being where it's non-physical and then becomes physical. That would just be absurd and arbitrary. And it's honestly not even something that has anything to do with the things I was saying. It's just something that the Bible says and that popular religions say happens because the people who wrote it are dumbasses. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there's no changing that the physical, that the non-physical, must exist, and it must go from one state of being to another. So you don't have to exist in a physical way to change, is what I'm trying to say. Hence why I've said and given evidence many times of this, that change itself is a non-physical process. And I've also talked about how it is that processes are not physical things anyway. They are non-physical forces of nature. So, like, you can't touch a process, you can't eat, you can't do anything physical to it. It doesn't occupy space, okay? It's just so. So basically, whatever's outside of the matter, it's not outside, because outside would be a location to whatever's inside. So all the outsides and insides are here in the universe, bound to the universe. And then basically, if the universe didn't exist, then there would still be things, I guess you could say there's still being things that exist. But just not there'd still be things that exist, just not in any way that makes perfect logical sense. So if you can't go outside of the universe, is what I'm trying to say. You can the only thing you could do is not exist within the universe. That doesn't mean you can go outside of it, though, because there's no outside of the universe. Like, if you have a house, and then what's outside of the house, if you're in your house and then you walk outside the door, walk through the door, you're outside your house now. See, there cannot be, here's the thing, there can't actually be an outside if there's no inside, and vice versa. There is an inside to the universe, but you cannot go outside of the universe, though. because it's an exception to that rule, because literally you can't go outside of it if there's no universe outside of the universe. And there's no location outside of all possible location. So after some point, the pattern of locations existing has to end. I mean, if it doesn't, then you have an infinite regress, which is a paradox in and of itself. So, but I already debunked the notion that it isn't a paradox, but on this channel. But again, my point still stands. If you can't go out, so you can't go outside the universe. If you had like, I don't know, like, how to here. You have a person, and this person walks to the edge of the universe. Well, if the person did try, they would not be able to go outside of the universe, because there is nothing outside. There is not a thing that is existing outside. There's just things that exist that aren't within the universe. Think of it like this. Another way to put it would be like, I can't exist outside of my house, but I can not exist within my house. There's a difference between those two statements. Just because I don't exist within my house doesn't mean I exist outside of my house. I hope that makes sense. Is the closest thing to what I'm trying to say here. So, the universe is the person's house, but there's no matter to exist outside of the matter, all the possible matter. So if the person tried, they could not go outside of the matter, no matter what they did. At best, if they went to the edge of the universe, they would maybe have their body disassembled be automatized. Or maybe nothing would happen. They wouldn't be able to keep walking into infinite matter, though. So something strange would happen, but they would never actually go outside of the universe, because there's nothing else. Whatever. Sorry, I'm just trying to be perfectly honest here, like, based off what I'm showing here. There's nowhere to go outside of the universe. The only places to go are within the universe. So if you don't exist, so the only way to not be in the universe is to no longer oh god, these fuckers are so annoying. Sorry. To no longer be a thing in the universe. That's the only way to not be in the universe, is to just not be a thing that exists in it. So that's why I was saying that if you occupy a body, you're not in the body, you're just the body itself. But even so, and I've given proof of that we're not in the body that we have, but regardless, you're not in the body, you are the body. But if you try to leave, you can't leave. Your body can't go outside of location. All possible locations. So if you don't exist in the location, it's not because your body went outside of all possible locations. It's because you don't exist in a location. So you'd have to take on a form of being that isn't physical. So you have to just be pure consciousness. Is basically all I'm trying to say here. Hence why again, I've said this many times, the Bible even says that God, the biblical God, existed prior to matter, and there was a state of being where God existed, but God existed, but matter didn't, and his being was just pure consciousness. That's what it says in Genesis. So basically that's what I'm talking about with the diagram here. Unfortunately, Christians have not drawn this out ever in history for themselves to understand. No Christian preacher, pastor, or whatever, or priest has done that. Yet I'm doing it for them with what their Genesis is saying. And still, my religion is still debunking a lot of notions in theirs and contradictions in there by doing so. So there you go. There you have it. If you wanted to go outside the universe... Wait. I don't... I am so sorry. I don't know what happened there. That is... I hate this phone. It's really dumb. Okay, but look. At the end of the day, what I'm saying is still true. So, again, I'll repeat it one more time, just to run it home here. If you wanted to go... The only reason you exist in the universe is because you are a physical thing that is in the universe. That's the only reason you're in the universe. If you were not a physical thing, you would not be in the universe, by the logic of what I'm saying. And basically, if you're a physical thing, you can't exist outside of location, is what I'm trying to say. Like, if you had a chair, it would have to exist in some sort of room, or it would have to exist in some sort of area or location to exist anywhere. Otherwise, you can't. It's not like there can be a universe that doesn't exist. I mean, it's not like there can be a chair that exists outside of the universe. That's not how the laws of physics work. So that's why I'm saying, again, it's no different with you as a person. You can't exist in the universe if you're not if you're not a body. So if you're not a body, you're not in the universe. You're something, but you're not inside the universe, but you're also not outside it. Because when we say outside, we're talking about even outsides are locations in relation to insides. So whatever this is that isn't in this is not a location. It's just basically, if you weren't in this, you would be doing what this that is not here is doing. Basically, you would be existing, but not inside of a thing. You would not be existing inside of something. You would just be pure consciousness, and that's it. That's all there would be to it. So there you have it. That's the entire explanation of the diagram. I might have missed things, and if I have, I'll have time to think about it to go back and add to it in another video. But I hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, subscribe.